Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me? A little louder. I don't have to use my teacher voice and talk right into the mic, apparently. Good evening. My name is Jessica Nordhaus, and I am State Director for Congresswoman Becca Balint. We're so pleased that you all made it out tonight, braved this post-snowstorm, although there were some flurries coming down this afternoon, found the new location, appreciate your flexibility. So without further ado, as we have the last few people coming in, I'm just gonna take care of a few little housekeeping details. First off, I'd like to thank our Vermont staff, most of whom is here tonight. Can you give a wave if you were with Congresswoman Balint, Thomas, Carolyn, Morgan, Aileen, Gus, our intern Emily up front, fearless crew who is the power behind all of this. Also would like to thank Montpelier Performing Arts Hub, the New School of Montpelier, and the Greenway Institute very much for hosting us. And we're pleased to be joined by some local representatives and elected officials. If that is you, would you stand or give a wave, please? Thank you for serving. These are great people to check in with if you have questions on local issues. So tonight we're going to start with brief remarks by the Congresswoman, and then we'll move to a Q&A. Our goal tonight is to get through as many questions as we can and a wide variety of topics. And in order to do that, we'll be drawing tickets at random to identify the people who can ask the questions. And if your number is drawn, we'll have you either come up to the mics or give a wave and we'll get you a cordless mic. We'll give you more instructions about how that works, but if you did not get a red ticket when you came in and you'd like to ask a question tonight, wave your hand now and one of our staff members will come around and give you a ticket. All right, we've got one in the front here. Great, keep waving. We've got restrooms in the back corner there. Exits where you came in, or there are two exit doors marked down in this end of the hall. They both involve stairs though, so if you have mobility issues, that is your best bet. And at the end, we're gonna do this town meeting style tonight. So at the end, if you are able and willing to fold up your chair and carry it to that end of the hall, we would be most appreciative. Now it is my great honor to introduce Congresswoman Becca Balint.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, very kind. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you so much. It's really so nice. I've been saying all day, it's really nice to be out of the Viper Pit. I'm very happy to be back in Vermont. And I want to thank you all for coming out on a snowy night, for being active citizens, for understanding that this is going to take all of us. It really is, and we all have to figure out our way that we are going to contribute to bringing this country back in line with our stated values. So it was only a month ago when we turned the corner on the year, and I know I heard from so many of my friends in Congress, but also my neighbors and my family, good riddance to that year, right? How could it be worse? Turns out it could get a lot worse real quick. And it's coming on a year of incredible anxiety certainly for Vermonters, but people across this country. So you've got the bill that was passed this summer that took a chainsaw to Medicaid, which of course directly impacts all of us, whether we are on Medicaid or not. It is an attack on rural hospitals and facilities, and of course all of our premiums go up when you suck nearly $1 trillion out of the healthcare system. So we were dealing with that. Of course, lots of people now are confronted with the fact that they can't afford their premiums because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle let the subsidies lapse for premium support on the ACA. It was our hope right up until the last minute that they would understand that no reform could happen in a few weeks' time, that we would need some time and give people stability to be able to continue to have health care. And they rejected that. We pushed hard in the House to get a bill passed, and we were able to bring 4 Republicans with us on a bill to extend the tax credits for 3 years. So the initial vote, we had 4 Republicans. The procedural vote, we had 9 Republicans, and I think on the final passage, we had 17, which is more than we've seen in a very long time. And so that was a glimmer of hope. Unfortunately, the Republicans in the Senate do not seem inclined to take up that bill. And I fear that we're not going to get any kind of compromise on those subsidies. And what it means is thousands of Vermonters and millions of people are going to choose to go without health care. And that's morally repugnant, and it's also economically stupid. It hurts all of us when we don't take care of all of us for people to be able to get that care before they're really sick. Then, of course, we had threats to the NATO alliance, this asinine rhetorical attack on Greenland, and then, of course, the very real invasion of Venezuela without any kind of congressional oversight and authority. And the thing that was really the most disheartening and enraging for all of us, sitting in a classified briefing, a top secret classified briefing, which I can't tell you the details of, but I can tell you this: I have never seen so much contempt and disrespect shown to members of Congress on both sides of the aisle when we were simply asking oversight questions about the mission, about what comes next, about how much money, and they refused to answer those questions. You have so many people in this administration who have been promoted way beyond their ability. I'm saying it nicely. But we also have a number of people that clearly have no moral compass whatsoever, and they do not care who they hurt. And that is as we've seen, a deadly combination. I went out to Minnesota about a week and a half ago to talk with people on the ground. Yes, you're welcome. And prior to that, I had gone with a Judiciary Committee to Chicago, too, when there was a surge, when they had the metro surge in Chicago. Similar tactics was not getting as much press as what's happening in Minnesota is getting, I think, for a variety of reasons. So I knew that going on the ground was the best way for me to truly understand the issues at play. I wasn't wrong. So 28 of us went out to Minnesota, all Democrats, because Republicans will not do oversight on this administration right now. We came from many different corners of the country. It was actually a very inspiring array of geographic representation. And we heard from, regular Minnesotans who are standing out there with their cameras, who are instructing people about their First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights. We talked with advocates and organizations who are delivering food and delivering diapers and making sure people can get their medicine because people are afraid to leave their homes. We talked to an American citizen who was detained by ICE, even though Kristi Noem continues to lie to the American public and say that no Americans have been arrested or detained. It is a flat-out lie. We have the receipts, and we also have people on the record who will testify to just that. And what we heard in Minnesota is they also now have holding cells in the immigration facility to hold Americans. It's an immigration facility. It is not designed to hold Americans who are exercising the First Amendment rights. We heard from law enforcement out there, local law enforcement, state and local officials, who said to us, we are outnumbered 3-to-1 by federal agents. This is the largest surge of federal law enforcement in a concentrated area in the history of this nation. And Minnesota was chosen for a reason, none of them good. None of them related to immigration enforcement. This is about abuse of power. This is about control. This is about terrorizing a community, and it is about trying to break us. And what the Minnesotans said is, these are our community members, and we are not backing down. Doesn't matter if it's below 9 degrees, we're going out in force. And they have figured out how to let people know where ICE and Border Patrol is. And they've realized that they have to expand their scope now because ICE and Border Patrol is not just doing targeted enforcement. They are rounding up anyone who looks like a person of color or has an accent, because Stephen Miller, that ghoulish man, has set a quota for how many people will be rounded up every day. So I don't care actually who you voted for. I really don't. It is behind us. What I care about is, how do we build a coalition across this country of people who desperately believe in Constitution and the rule of law and separation of powers. And I want you on the team together, all of us. This is not a time for us to be drawing small circles. This is a time for us to be expanding big circles into this movement. So it's a lot to process. I know from the phone calls that I'm getting, both here in the Vermont office and the DC office, people are overwhelmingly concerned and frightened about what's happening with ICE and Border Patrol. It's like been the top topic of calls for weeks now. Certainly a lot of Vermonters also concerned about health care and just generally about the health of the democracy going forward. So I will just say, I serve on the Constitution Subcommittee on the Judiciary Committee, and we have been meeting with constitutional lawyers and scholars, and what has become clear to us is the Constitution is no longer feeling like a living, breathing document for people. It feels like this idea that we're not living up to. It feels like something in this moment that is being ignored and weaponized against us. And so one of the things we're thinking about on that subcommittee is, how do we do the work of educating every single American so that they understand that actually they have a stake in that document, and this democracy will only work if we are together shoring up the Constitution. Now, I got my hard days, I won't lie. Sometimes, like in the Jack Smith hearing last week, I felt like I was in upside down land. We can't even agree on basic facts of what happened in the Capitol. But most days, when I walk up to the Capitol, I feel very honored and very lucky. Vermont only gets one member of the House of Representatives, and it is the honor of my life to get to represent all of you. And I don't always get it right, but I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I fight every day for the interests of Vermonters and the nation as a whole, and I'm very excited to hear your questions tonight. So thank you for coming out. Yeah. So we started doing the lottery system because we realized that and some of the earlier events that we had done, certain people, unfortunately, would monopolize the microphone for a long time. I think we've all been in meetings like that, and it's frustrating for everyone. So this is a way for us to try to get through as many as possible, and it's worked out. I think this is our 9th town hall that we've done in the last year, and it's been pretty successful. So take it away, Jessica. What do we got?
Thank you. I think the microphone is on now.
Okay, yes, it is.
Excellent. So, goal is to have as many people able to ask a question as we can. What we're going to do is we're going to draw numbers from our bin of governmental transparency. And we'll call 4 numbers at a time. So if you hear your number, please make your way to one of these mics at the front, in the front aisles, if you're able to. Please be careful. I've noticed the floor is a little slick when it's wet. If you are not able to get out of your seat, if it's not easy for you, give a wave and Thomas will deliver my mic to you. It's actually your mic. When it's your turn to ask a question, please try and keep it clear and concise, and then return to your seat to have the Congresswoman answer the
Jessica, can I add
question.
one thing too?
Yes,
I know
please.
sometimes people want to get their one question and ask 3 questions. I don't think that's fair to everybody, so you get 1 question. You get 1.
No follow-ups.
No follow-ups.
If you have a follow-up, you are
We
more
can
than welcome to
follow
call
up with
our
the team
office.
afterwards, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If also your number is called, but your question has been answered, that would be a great time to stay in your seat. Just don't raise your hand, don't come up, we will move on. Let's do it. 4 numbers. I know, this is difficult, Thomas. It's one of the hardest parts of my job. I got 5 here, sorry, number 5. All right, the first number is, they all start with 536. So I'm going to read you the last 4 digits. 3473, I'll repeat these. 3466, 3475,
Everybody needed to bring their bifocals.
and 3453. Highly recommend progressives. That's 3473, 3446, 3475, and 3453.
Hi. How are you? Hanging in?
Could be better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do you want names and towns or anything? Okay. Renee, Kiewit, Kyler, East Montpelier.
Great.
And out of my 1,000 questions, I think the biggest one is, are the Democrats working on Project 2026?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that? Thank you.
So the question was, unfortunately, the Republicans had planned for a long time, coming back to power. They planned Project 2025 and have been basically using that playbook to dismantle the government, slash funding for science and education. And the question was, are the Democrats having a more benevolent version of that? Yes, we are. The committees of jurisdiction are working on exactly that. And certainly the most immediate concern for us right now are making sure we have free and fair elections. And, I just want to remind everybody that elections are not federal, right? They are state by state. And in many ways, that's a good thing. It's decentralized. So it makes it much more difficult to tamper. However, I think many people saw Trump say in an interview last week, the mistake I made in 2020 is I didn't seize the voting boxes. So we know that. So we know that we cannot get caught flat-footed, and we have to plan for every horrible eventuality. And I think what will be important between now and the midterms is for us, and I heard this last night in an event I was doing, people need to know specifically what the parts of that plan are. And because we don't have a lot of time tonight, I will just say it is incredibly important that our Project 2027 is not rebuilding things the way that they were before, because they weren't serving people before. And yes, there are certain things that we have to fully fund again, like research and science and development. We have to continue to send aid and support overseas. That's for our own moral calling, but also our security. But that when we look at the ways that certain agencies and departments really weren't meeting the needs of Americans and they felt impenetrable, that needs to change. Absolutely. It cannot be rebuilt back the way that it was. It has to be more accessible to people. So, yeah. And it means unrigging the economy. I think we all know that here in Vermont, but that is part of the work that we have to do, which is why I serve on the antitrust subcommittee, and I also am the leader of a task force looking at corporate greed and how we get ready for that Project 2027 plan as well. So, yeah. Hi.
Hi, my name's Joanne Garton. I live here in Montpelier, and I'm a naturalized citizen of the United States, and I don't take that for granted at all. I love being able to vote. Yeah. And so my question is actually about free and fair elections. What can we do to help? What can we do to make sure that people in Vermont can vote and that people in other states can vote and that our votes are actually counted?
Yeah, a couple things. So I have a tremendous amount of faith in our Secretary of State and all of our town clerks across Vermont. They do an incredibly great job making sure that people can vote. We also have taken a lot of steps here in Vermont to make it very accessible for people to vote. We have motor voter registration, we have absentee ballot, all of these things that we know makes it possible for people to take advantage of the franchise, even if they are homebound or even if they know that they're called away for work. We believe that just because you get called out of state for work, that doesn't mean you lose your right to vote. So we got to make sure that those not just stay strong here in Vermont, but we have to encourage those initiatives in other states. Now, I know one thing, it's Montpelier. I know there's a fair amount of attorneys in the room. So my wife is an attorney. She's a healthcare attorney. But every year, every election year, she goes across the border into New Hampshire, and she's a poll watcher. And you sign up, and you get trained. And it's important for all of us to be thinking ahead. And if you are able to travel, make a plan now. Which battleground state can you go to volunteer as a poll watcher? So that's one thing for folks in the legal community. In terms of the vote in particular, I have to walk a fine line here because I can't advertise things as a member of Congress. I will just say that you should check out the work of Mark Elias, who runs Democracy Docket, and he is someone that we go to as members of the judiciary for advice and counsel on these issues specifically for voting. The other thing that I would say is, and I know this sounds very, very Vermonty, but I mean it most sincerely, we have to get to know our neighbors better. We have to get out of our circles, and we have to see each other as Vermonters who all care deeply about the vote and make the case to one another why it's important that each and every one of us has faith in the franchise. If we don't have faith in the process, the whole thing falls apart. And I also want to say, you started, where did you go? You started by talking about your fears as a naturalized citizen. You alluded to that. My dad's a naturalized citizen. I didn't have my citizenship I completely straightened out until I was 18. I was born overseas to a man who was in the service. And my dad and I were on the phone the other night, and I said, "Dad, do you know where your papers are?" He said, "I've been thinking about that. I'm trying to find them." And I said, "Mom, do you know where my papers are?" And she said, I'm working on it, dear, I'm working on it. So look, I'm white. I'm probably not going to be stopped for my papers. But these people are serious about denaturalizing people. It's not just rhetoric. We need to take them seriously when they say these astonishing things. And we all need to stand up for one another, regardless of immigration status, because everyone is protected by the Constitution in this country when you are on this soil, even if you are not an American citizen. Okay, so thank you. Yeah.
Just a simple question. What is the most important thing, or 3 things, that we can be doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I made a list for myself because I was afraid that I would forget. So, because believe it or not, this is my 5th speaking engagement today. And yes, thank you. I'm still lucid. That's good. So look, I need people to exercise your First Amendment rights. I need us, in whatever way that you can, in whatever way that you are comfortable, we need to exercise these rights so that we do not take them for granted and so that other people in our community don't take them for granted. And that means, yes, using your voice. And that means exercising freedom of assembly. And that means if there is something happening, whether it is on a farm near you or if there's a group of roofers that are being hauled away, it's important for us to do the work of witnessing and doing as much documenting as we can do, peacefully, safely. But we know from Minnesota, we know from Chicago, also LA, and in Portland, that in order for us to hold these people accountable, we need the evidence, photo evidence, eyewitnesses. And I know it's scary to think about that that's where we are in this country right now, but I'm telling you that's where we are in this country right now. And so we have to ask ourselves in our own way, what can I do to be part of this movement of bringing us back in line with our values? So keep exercising your rights. And I know that is a scary proposition for someone who is either a green card holder or a naturalized citizen or a person of color. The stakes are higher, which is why it's very important for us, if we are in a place of more comfort and privilege, we have to be the ones exercising those rights on behalf of other people. We really do. So obviously, yes, calling your representatives and your senators, you know this. I would also say reaching out to people in other states that you know, friends, family, and don't just urge them to call, actually urge them to write an email. Because emails are harder to ignore, and instead of just being a number that we get, like this many calls came in on this topic, they will let the member know about what it was that you were deeply concerned about, and it will rise to the top more. So obviously, on most things, Peter and Bernie and I are completely aligned. There's no space between us, but it's also okay to call us to say, you like what we're doing. That's okay, and you can do that. We have to organize with others. And I don't just mean organize as in standing out on a town green, though that's important. I mean doing what they were doing in Minnesota, which is knowing that if stuff goes down, we know who's going to help deliver food to those folks who don't feel safe leaving their homes. We know who's going to do the run to the pharmacy. You have to set those networks up now. That's what we heard in Minnesota, that they were ready for it. They were ready because they had gone through George Floyd. They had gone through what happened with the assassination of Melissa Holman. They had been through so much. They had those networks ready. I think starting by county and then by town, I think is important. And we have to start holding the corporations responsible who are running ads for ICE and Border Patrol on their sites. And I actually sent a letter of inquiry to Meta and Google saying, why exactly are you running white nationalist propaganda, trying to recruit people for ICE and Border Patrol? And we know that Meta and Google and Amazon and AT&T and Comcast and Dell and FedEx have all contracted in some way with ICE and Border Patrol. And we need to demand answers, and we need to vote with our pocketbooks, okay? We need to do more Know Your Rights trainings. We're going to try to help coordinate that in conjunction with a lot of the organizations around the state that help immigrants and refugees. So stay tuned. We're working on that. I'm trying to take what I learned in Minnesota and bring it back here. And the most basic one is don't lose heart. You can't. They want us to lose heart. They want to break us. They want us to feel like it's inevitable that we're going to slide into fascism and autocracy. It is not inevitable. And we make the difference. We do. And we can and we will. I know that. I know that. So, yeah.
Before you ask your question, I'm going to call the next four members so you all can make your way down. 3546, 3443, 3524, and 3532.
Come on down.
Come on down. One more time. 3546, 3443, 3524, and 3532.
You've known me a while. You've known me since I was in the Senate, in the state Senate. It's nice to see you.
I like what you're doing.
Thank you.
So my question really only calls for a one-word answer.
Okay.
And I hope it's not no.
Okay. Okay, she's feeding me my answer. Okay.
In order
Yeah.
talk about voting, in order to vote, we have to have an election. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that the Constitution provides some basis for the president to suspend elections. And my suspicion has been that's been Trump's goal all along. Mm-hmm. Does Congress have any authority or power to prevent that from happening?
So let's unpack this a little bit, okay? I know you wanted just a one-word answer, but I'm a former history teacher, and I just can't do that, honey. I just can't. Okay, so what we're really talking about, right, is this tension that we see. He seems pretty clearly intent on invoking the Insurrection Act, right? And that is the concern that we have in terms of suspending the election. I have been heartened by some of my Republican colleagues who have said, no, we are not going to go along with a third Trump term. That is not within the scope and plan of our thinking around this. Now, I've seen them buckle before, but they understand that this administration has actually been really bad for them too. Here's the secret that a lot of people don't realize. Most of the folks in Congress on the Republican side go along with MAGA, but they're not MAGA. It's an act. And in some ways, that's much more chilling. That they're willing to go along to get along, that they mock the president in the elevator, they make fun of their constituents. They will tell you this tariff regime is asinine and taking us over a cliff. They know it, and yet they continue to go along. They want this to end, but they're not strong enough or courageous enough to make it end. Because they can't get their FEMA funding either right now from this incompetent Secretary Noem, who's not just destroying people's lives with Border Patrol and ICE, but also has essentially frozen FEMA funds that are not getting out to people who need it. So they know it's not good. And so here's another reason why I believe we won't get to that point in terms of Republicans going along with that plan. They understand that they also, the people who are there for the right reasons, they understand that Congress is absolutely fundamentally broken, and they want to be able, the people who ran on the opioid crisis, the people who ran on the housing crisis, they are not delivering for their constituents either. And some of us were laughing the other day in the Democratic cloakroom because we're like, hey, do you guys notice the Republicans are being nice to us now? It's like, yeah, they're going to lose in the midterms, and they need us to pass some bills because they don't have anything to show their constituents for what they got done. So look, I'm not naive, and I have seen enough to know that they are capable of throwing us all over for their own ego and their own power. But I personally, given what I've seen, I do not have concerns that we're not going to have an election because Trump is a bully, and we saw when Minnesota pushed back, you saw already some backpedaling. That's how we have to address him, with punches. We need to punch back, and we need to not blink. That's how we deal with this. It is not appeasement. It is not law firms appeasing. It is not universities appeasing. It is not the media appeasing. It is standing up and drawing a line and making him blink, because he will blink. He will. Yes.
Hi, Becca.
Yes.
Former history teacher here as well. So I was really glad to hear you open up the way you did, open up the talk today, and talking about the need for education for people, which is something I'm a little obsessed with, because if you were a history teacher and you see what's happening, you just want to scream like a. But you know, we have been both nationally and as a state, unfortunately, de-emphasizing history and civics education for many, many years. And so I hear
we see the result of that.
We're seeing the result of it.
Yeah, nationally.
Right.
Yes.
So I really, like I said, I like the way that you started out today by talking about that, but I would love to start hearing from leaders at all levels some real specifics around that, because we still don't
around education,
civic and history education, because what really happens is the people in this room, or the people who are savvy about that stuff, are the people who are in space, are lucky enough and privileged enough to be in the spaces to learn it that way. So it's a huge equity issue.
Absolutely.
Where we're not educating some of the people who need it the most about their rights, about how they access government and all. So I'm curious just what details people have, or what we could see.
I really appreciate that question. I actually have been thinking about this for the 3 years that I've been in Congress. How do I marry my previous life as a history and social studies and civics teacher with my current role as a legislator? And I actually just met with my communications team last week saying I want to do more direct-to-camera short videos on the Constitution, about government. And what I've realized, both having served in the state Senate and having served in Congress, is that a lot of Americans actually don't understand the difference between state legislature and Congress. And I'm not throwing shade, that's just an observation. When I was in the Senate, I would get very angry emails about, please, you can't let them drill in Anwar. And at first I was very taken aback, but it happened enough that I realized this is actually a teachable moment to write back and say, hey, I don't know if you're aware, I don't get to vote on this, and here's why. And to the person, they would write back and say, thank you for explaining that, I never knew that. And No Child Left Behind did a terrible job on history and civics education in this country, and we are paying the price right now. So I'm trying to figure out how to use my platform to do that. And you didn't ask about this, but it's wrapped up in this, so I want to just name it. The majority of Americans read at a 5th or 6th grade reading level. That just is. And as a teacher, I can be very heartbroken about that. But I also need to acknowledge that, and I need to make sure that the ways in which I'm communicating can be understood, right? We have to listen to understand, we have to speak to be understood. And that is a problem that we've had on our side of the aisle. For the Democrats in the room, we always want to speak in footnotes, and we don't speak in top lines. We have to speak in top lines, have the footnotes, but we have to find ways, again, that are bringing people into the knowledge and not being judgmental because they don't have the knowledge. Because there's lots of stuff that I don't know, and I've been in government for a decade now, and there's still procedural stuff I don't understand. So I have to have that beginner's mind and use that to do more education as well. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Teresa Michaud. I live here in Montpelier, and I am so grateful for your leadership and that we have Bernie and Peter. And I'm just wondering, a lot of us are very disheartened by the national Democratic leadership, in the face of basically the total dismantling of democracy. It feels like that they think that they're playing by the same rules we've always played by, and we're not. And I am just wondering what the discussion is among those of you who get it. What's going on with that? Because it's really disheartening.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I hear that a lot. And so, yeah, I want to validate what you said. I think there are certainly leaders in this moment right now who believe that we can still operate as if we were in the 1980s and 90s, and that somehow the folks on the other side of the aisle in this moment are going to meet us halfway. They're not right now. They need to lose terribly in the midterms, and they do. And I don't mean just by a little bit. They need to lose terribly for them to understand we do not want ICE in our streets. We do not want people being violated in terms of their Fourth Amendment rights. So they need to lose decisively. And with that will come this, I think, this realization also on the Democratic side that we must use the power when we have it. I am still angry that President Obama did not do a recess appointment to the Supreme Court. Yeah. I'm still angry about that. And so I want to put your mind at ease a little bit right now, because the election that we're facing, and I have my own issues with leadership. Okay, I'm just going to keep it general, okay? But what I see within the caucus and what I see within the Senate, too, is people figuring out their own way to lead and lead by example. And so the midterms are not a federal, nationwide election, right? They are district by district. And so it is okay in this moment that the Democrats in each district are figuring out how it is they're going to communicate to their constituents about the issues that are most important to them. And what we hear from people, and of course the last week changed it a little bit with ICE, but coming into this, people were deeply concerned about healthcare costs. They were deeply concerned about education costs. They were deeply concerned about pocketbook issues. That was what we were seeing over and over again. And yes, we in Vermont think number one should be preserving the democracy. I know that it's baked in there, but national polling, it's about bread and butter issues. People want to be able to make ends meet and eat, exactly. And so I believe that the work that we are all doing in the caucus to set that agenda is going to be the thing that we're running on. And it has to be about healthcare costs, and it has to be about building housing, and it has to be about going after corporate greed. It has to be about making sure we have a fair tax policy. Like, we do need to be proactive in messaging that, but how it gets messaged in each district is going to be a little bit different, because I want to win. And if my colleague in Western Michigan, who has a very divided electorate in her district, if she needs to say it a little bit different than I get to say it, that's okay, because I want to win, and I want to win a lot. Does that make sense? You got to follow up.
It does. I'm just wondering how that's getting supported by the Democratic Party national leadership.
So yeah, that's true, no follow-ups. I will just say this. As your representative, I do not take my marching orders from the DNC or the DCCC. I take my marching orders from the people on the ground who are telling me what they want me to fight for, and also my own moral compass. And I'm not the only one who sees it that way. So it's okay in this moment. Do not see them as the arbiters of what the plan is, I guess is what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, before you ask your question, we're going to draw another 4 numbers. If you came in a little late, if you decided you do have a question you'd like to ask and you would like to be entered in the lottery, raise your hand and a staff member will come around with tickets.
Should I ask my question? Yeah.
Let me read some numbers first.
Okay.
3472, 3527, 3539, and 3493. Again, that's 3472, 3527, 3539, 3493, and when you ask your question, make sure you get close enough to the mic that everybody can hear what you're asking.
And Jessica, can I just say one other thing about that previous question? Because I want to make sure that I also give some credit where credit's due. Within the House caucus, we changed the national conversation on health care. And we held the line, and we were able to pass bills to the Senate to protect your health care. I can't speak for the Senate, but we did that. We also were able to use discharge petitions, which is a very archaic way of trying to get a bill to the floor. We did that successfully, and our leadership within the caucus helped us to do that. So I just wanted to make sure people understand there is I know you see us all as the same in the House and the Senate. We had some wins this year. We did. Not enough. Yeah.
My name's Joe John. I'm from Plainfield. I think what we're witnessing in America is the ramifications of Citizens United.
Yeah.
Money in politics, I don't know how, it's about bribery as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the first thing that needs to be fixed in order for everything to be fixed.
Yeah. I agree with you, and it's not just Citizens United, it's dark money as well.
Yeah, it's money. Yeah. We have a money problem.
We have a big money problem.
But I guess the question is, if the when the Democrats win in the midterms, are they really going to do something?
Yeah,
and that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, oh, I hear you. Look, there are so many of us in the caucus who understand that money is the problem. There are many of us that understand that it is critical that we pass a stock trading ban. I mean, it's unbelievable that we're still here. And so I can only speak for myself and the people within the caucus that I'm talking to on a regular basis. And I really pride myself on moving around on the floor because we don't have assigned seats. So I get to know the blue dogs and I get to know the moderates and I hang with the progressives and figuring out what's the tenor within the caucus. And across the country, what we are hearing is people want a populist Democratic Party that is actually going to structurally change the economy of this country. And part of that is about who gets in office and how are they able to get there. And so these are big issues to tackle. So I'm not going to overpromise, but there are many of us who understand that that needs to change and are working on that on the inside. Yeah, thank you.
I'd also like to just blame John Roberts, that's all.
Oh, yes, yes. What a disappointment he is, huh? All right. Who's next? Okay. Hi.
All right, great. I think I'm the first one to use this mic, so I wanted to check. We touched a little bit on this subject, but I don't want to back away from the possible eventuality here.
Yeah.
Since Trump realized you can't hold elections in wartime during a meeting with Zelensky in August, he has been working to foment enough violence to justify canceling the midterms. If he succeeds, we will likely enter into some kind of civil war, some level. I want to think that is a low probability, and your comments earlier helped me think
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But even if there's a 5% chance that your house gets taken out by a wildfire,
Oh, yeah.
you should
That-
at least
you don't want
have,
those odds, yeah.
You should at least have an evacuation plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my question is, what is being done to prepare for such painful but possible outcomes?
Mm-hmm.
Is a multi-state secession being talked about anywhere? What else might we do to prepare for such things? Thank you.
Yeah. So I think you're giving voice to what a lot of people are feeling, that it feels like we are hurtling towards autocracy, especially when you have a president who says, I'm very comfortable being a dictator. So I understand the level of fear and concern. There are people who are thinking about this issue in earnest on committees of jurisdiction that I don't serve on. So I can't give you a detailed plan for what will happen. But I can tell you, my colleagues who were there during January 6th understand the possibility of that happening again. They are very clear-eyed about that, and they are in those rooms having those conversations about what's going to happen. I know that there are conversations happening within the committees of jurisdiction on military affairs. We had a meeting the other night with ex-military talking to us about how do we support the men and women who are going to have a crisis of conscience and say, I am not going to shoot an American citizen. I'm not going to be deployed to Minnesota against my fellow citizens. I'm not going to take part in a hostile takeover of Greenland. So believe me, at many levels of government, on the Democratic side, in terms of us reaching out to folks who are former military, people who are involved in securing elections, nobody believes that it can just be a cross your fingers kind of moment. I just can't give you the details right now in this open forum because I'm not on the inside. But I had a conversation with a representative, Joe Morelli, who's very much looking at the issues of securing the elections, and I said to him the other day, it's going to be really important that we let Americans know what we're doing around this. Like, I'm reassured that you're telling me that you are looking at all of this, but we have to be more transparent about that, what those things are. Now, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but like, what's implied in that also is we don't know who we can trust right now. Right. Think about that. And so when you serve with people who will clearly lie to your face, will look at the same video that you saw of the January 6th riot and police officers being beat and will say on the record, it was a peaceful visit that day, then it makes it very difficult to know who do you include in those conversations going forward. But I will go back also to Representative Morelli and say, we need a presentation for Americans because I get this question a lot, and I really appreciate that you're pushing me on it because we have a right to know. We have a right to know. But thank you. Yep.
Maureen Dwyer from Barrytown, and I have 3 words for you. Epstein. Epstein.
Yeah.
Epstein.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Okay, I got a question about this last night as well. We are not going to let it go. Okay? We're not. We're not going to let it go. And certainly, President Trump has been doing a lot to try to change the conversation right now. But my friend and colleague, Robert Garcia, who is the ranking member on the Oversight Committee, he is like a dog on a bone with this issue, and they are going to continue As of right now, only 1% of the Epstein files have been released. So they're not only violating federal law at this point, they're also violating a court order. And so some of this stuff may not come out until after the midterms, but we're not going to stop talking about it. These victims have had no justice, no restitution, no apology from their government about what was done to them and continues to happen to them. And it's one of the things many of us are going to be asking Pam Bondi when she comes into the Judiciary Committee in a few weeks' time is exactly about that. And we know that a lot of Americans care deeply about this issue. And a lot of my Republican colleagues ran on this issue. And so it's critically important that we continue this until we get justice for those victims and that we have all of these documents in the light of day. I think Americans can handle the truth, and we need to know who, regardless of party, may have been involved.
Okay, next four. 3501. 3504.
And my team, I've gone through all the water. I don't know if there's another water ball out there.
We'll get you more water.
Thanks.
3519. 3516. That's 3501. 3504. 3519. And 3516.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Glenn. I'm from Montpelier. This is a question about the time before the midterms. It looks to me as public opinion is turning against the ICE murders and the concentration camps, and some Republicans are turning away in shame from their party.
Yep. Not enough, but a few. Yeah.
That there may be an opportunity before the midterm elections to shift the balance of power on specific issues in Congress. And I wonder if you see any possibility or opportunity there, and if so, if you'd be willing to share any strategic thinking.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have been continually disappointed by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that will often say to us, we're going to stand with you on this vote, which is something that they care deeply about, that they're going to stand with us. And in the end, we always say, you know, they fold faster than a fan, right? I mean, they make a stand for the cameras, and then inevitably they cave. Now, I did see a bright spot, and I want to go back to what you alluded to. We saw some folks this weekend. You had Greg Abbott saying that what had happened in Minnesota, ICE is going too far. You know, I'm paraphrasing. You also had the governor of Oklahoma, also a very conservative Republican, saying this has gone too far. You've had a couple people. You had Rand Paul in the Senate saying we're going to hold hearings. You had his counterpart in the House, similar thing. What I get worried about, and we see this every time, they have courage when they're back in their districts. They do. They'll speak, because they're hearing from their constituents. And they say, this is outrageous. They're shooting Americans. You know, I thought you were a Second Amendment protector, and now you're letting them drag his name through the mud, and he had, you know, a permit to carry, and they are courageous, and they talk to their local outlets. And then they get back to D.C., and they lose all that courage, and they have hive mind. And Speaker Johnson knows this, and the president knows this, because he hauls them up to the White House, you know, to lean on them. And so I want to be hopeful that this is a turning point. It does feel different right now around this issue. There is a constellation of issues at play here, specifically around ICE and Border Patrol, that does cut across party line. And the most crucial voting block right now for the midterms are the independents. And the independents have had a huge swing away from their support of ICE and immigration. So there is an opportunity. I just get very concerned that all of the bravery that we see when they're back in their districts is going to evaporate. I thought I would see that same kind of courage around healthcare. You had Josh Hawley saying, oh, we got to do something. This is terrible. This is going to hurt my people. He voted with him and then wrote a very strongly worded letter about how devastating this is, and we got to find a solution here. So I'm let down all the time. I am an optimist. You know, my son says I'm too optimistic. But we have to, and I was talking about this with folks here, when people do the right thing, we need to tell them they're doing the right thing. It's important for us to reach out, even though, you know, it may give us some bile in our stomach or our throat to reach out to Greg Abbott or the governor of Oklahoma or these people. It's important that they hear from Americans and saying, that was the right thing, we see you, we appreciate it. And that's true for my Republican colleagues as well. But I'm holding my breath. And a lot of people ask me, will we see a Jim Jeffords moment? We're not going to see that. We would have already seen it. We're not going to see it. I wish that were the case. We're not. They have to lose, and they have to lose big for us to try to right the ship. Yeah. Yep.
My name is Fran Dodd. I live here in Montpelier, about 2 blocks away. And I want to talk about the fact that Trump obviously only cares about billionaires and being more of a billionaire
Yes.
than he already is.
Yes.
And I want to know what can be done or what is being done about the account that Trump has set up in Qatar.
Yes, the slush
to
fund.
put in
Yep.
the Venezuelan oil money,
Yes.
which will only increase with time.
Yes.
And that he thinks he can just have total control over,
Yes.
and it should be
Yeah.
U.S. money or Venezuelan money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to expand your question a little bit because we are fighting this administration on many different fronts. So one is legislative, one is legal. We have many pending cases against the Trump administration, and many of which we're winning in the lower courts, even even in courts that are being ruled by Trump appointees. So legislative, legal, appropriations, right? How do we claw back some of this money that was used for ICE or Border Patrol? In the case of this, right, this is a legal case. What he is doing, he does not have the authority to do, right? And then there's the moral imperative. That's the 4th prong. And we have seen extraordinary courage from clergy across this country of many different denominations. We saw it in Chicago. We are seeing it in Minnesota. And I was very impressed by, I think it was an Episcopal bishop in New Hampshire, who said, to his priests, get your effects in order. This is a time for moral clarity, and you may need to stand up and put your body on the line to protect people's humanity and rights. And so I don't want us on the Democratic side to discount the importance of the moral imperative here. And I feel like I am I'm a member of the Free Thought Caucus. I believe in a strict separation of church and state. And I also know, it's okay for me when speaking with constituents to talk about a moral imperative, a spiritual imperative, what binds us together as people. And I want us to understand we can do both things at the same time. Now, in terms of the other piece of this, how do we hold this administration accountable, is we're saving all the receipts. Because just because they're not in power now doesn't mean, just because they're in power now doesn't mean they're always going to be in power. And we will need trials. We will need people being held accountable. I think long term we need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission for this country. And AG Ellison in Minnesota and Governor Walz, they are very clear. They are going to prosecute in state court. They are gathering all the evidence that we can. And this is true about the Trump corruption as well. This is the most corrupt White House. I mean, it's stunning. It really is stunning. And again, so many Hatch Acts violations, all these things. What we're doing is documenting and saving and getting so many whistleblowers on the record in these departments, these courageous people, and many people who are fighting the good fight and then finally have to resign even though they don't know how they're going to take care of their families because they know it's the right thing. But we are gathering that evidence. This isn't going to be like, oh, we're moving on. It can't be. Because if it is, people will have no faith in government. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Schoolcraft, and I'm a resident. I'm so nervous all of a sudden.
Oh, you're doing great. You're doing great.
Of Duxbury.
Okay.
And an elementary school principal. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Very difficult job.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult job.
Some days. So it's pretty easy to feel hopeless.
Yeah.
And I think about the increase in students and families that I serve and how difficult it is for people to make ends meet and to manage life right now. Yeah. And there's been a lot of talk and I think efforts of really, speaking with your pocketbook and striking, boycotting, all of those pieces. Can you talk a little bit more about how that could work and how the everyday person that is slogging through, shoveling 3 feet of snow and trying to put dinner on the table and what that could look like?
Yeah. So we have some examples that we can turn to in the past year. So when the FTC chair, Brendan Carr, again, basically was shaking down networks to try to put more pro-Trump content on, and he went after. Always get Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel mixed up. Kimmel. I know they're very different. It's just the Jimmy part, okay? It's just the Jimmy part. It's been a long day. People absolutely voted with their pocketbook. The number of people who canceled their subscription, was it Paramount Plus, I think? And Disney? It was ferocious. Stock declined, and we saw a reversal. It was interesting. The day that happened, I was in a meeting with somebody from Disney, and she was like, "Oh, I think this is gonna blow over." I was like, "Nope, nope, it's not." I said, "You have made a huge, huge error." So that we saw, and we see this again out in Minnesota with Target. We saw that Target was backing away from all of its very progressive policies. Lots of people decided they were going to be shopping somewhere else. And that absolutely impacted that company and their shareholders. Look, we are a capitalist country. We got to get the shareholders to wake up. It's one of the reasons why I sent the letter to Meta and Google around why are you platforming white nationalist rhetoric? We got to call it out. We can't be dancing around these things. And so I know it's hard because we are captured by so many corporations who have cornered the market on so much of the products and services that we use. It's difficult, right? And so I will not tell anyone who's living on a dirt road in Vermont that they can't order the thing that they need from Amazon, and they got 3 kids they're trying to take care of. That isn't what I want to say here. But if you have the means and you can make a choice, make the best choice that you can have with the dollars that you have, because that is the only thing that is going to wake up some of these companies, because they're complicit. They are complicit in this. So look, we knew it was going to be this way at the inauguration, and I went because I wanted to see this president swear an oath on the Constitution. I wanted to be in the room with him. And the people he was going to have in his cabinet
were sitting in the back row. He had the billionaires in the front. Go back and look at the pictures. And Tim Cook the other night, CEO of Apple, where was he when Alex Preddy was assassinated? He was at the White House seeing a screening of the Melania documentary. I'm not joking. But again, you know, what do we do with these corporations that have lost every bit of moral authority? We have to. People did it with Tesla. People showed up. So it's uncomfortable for us. We're not used to this. We're not used to worrying about the fact that we're sliding towards autocracy. It's uncomfortable. But my ask of all of you is to do what you can when you can. And for all of us to just dig a little bit deeper, we got to be willing to be uncomfortable. And you know, Tim Wall said it the other day when he was talking to us. He said, we had 50,000 Minnesotans on the streets in -9-degree weather. And he's like, I didn't hear a single person complaining. People were checking in with each other. People were making sure that they had their voices heard. People were saying, I've never done anything like this. Did you see that 70-year-old guy? I love this guy. I was telling a good friend of mine who's in her 70s, I saw her this afternoon. I said, did you see the guy? She's like, what guy? I said, he was so enraged, and he just was out there saying, I'm 7 years old. I'm so angry, and a lot of expletives. But he was standing up to ICE and saying, no. No, and that's all really he could get out. That's the energy we have to have right now, in any way that we can. I call him the 70-year-old guy because everybody's posts were like, 70-year-old guy. I don't know his name. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I'm looking at.
Yeah, 70 is not that old. I heard you. I heard you. He said he was a 7-year-old guy. I'm just saying. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the time, which is truly the hardest part of my job. And I think we have time for 2 more questions. So will 3463, if you're that ticket holder, come on down. And 3521. We'll have 2 questions, and then we will let the Congresswoman get on the road because she's got to get home tonight. 3463. And 3521, and then a few moments for closing remarks.
Hi, Michael Hoffman, Montpelier. I'm inundated every day. My text messages.
Inundated? Is that?
Inundated.
Okay, yep.
With
fundraising.
Requests for money.
You got it.
And you know, if I were one of those guys that was sitting on the front row of Trump's thing,
you're like, sure.
I could fund everybody.
Yes.
But how do we, who maybe don't live in one of these battleground states and aren't willing necessarily to travel there, how can we best use our resources, financial resources, to support the reclamation of Congress? We have to take the House. We have to take the Senate. We have to impeach this asshole. And if possible, the Vice President, the Speaker of the House, and the SCOTUS. So I don't know that we can do a clean sweep, but it would be a nice thing.
Okay, so I really appreciate this question because I know it's incredibly frustrating to be inundated with emails and texts constantly. I know that. So a lot of these candidates who ask for money, right, they're running in primaries. And you have to ask yourself, as a Vermonter, is it important for you to play in a primary in another state when you may not understand all of the dynamics on the ground? It's just a difficult thing to assess when you don't live there. If you have a finite amount of money, I think it's important to look at I know a lot of people would be angry with me for saying this. If you have a finite amount of money, it's important to use it in the general. Okay? Because we need to support
Those districts, battleground districts, districts we call red to blue districts, also known as the swing districts, that is what makes the majority. And so you can find lists of those, once we're through the primary season, and actually some primaries are happening really soon. In Vermont, ours doesn't happen until the summertime. But making lists for yourself of who are in those battleground seats, who are those swing districts, and concentrate your money there. We always say they're the majority makers. We pretty much know where blue candidates, I hate that expression because we represent not just Democrats, we represent everybody, right? But that's where I would focus your attention and your resources. And in this cycle, if you are able-bodied and you have the time and the inclination, really consider doing some door knocking in some of those battleground districts. It makes a difference. It really, really does. And I know a lot of people get very nervous about that idea. But you can also, if you're not comfortable door knocking, you can make calls remotely now from your own phone. And again, I know in those situations, people say, oh, it makes me uncomfortable. We're all really uncomfortable right now. And figure out the way that you can make a difference. The worst thing is for you to say, it doesn't matter. It does matter. If we had had the majority, we wouldn't have lost our, so many things. But I understand the frustration with the two-party system. I really, really do. I've got two teenagers myself. They're like, when are we going to move beyond this two-party thing, Mom? Like, really? And I get it. In this moment, this is what we've got to work with, and we have to make sure we are back in control. If for no other reason, we will control the subpoenas, okay? It matters. It matters. I think there's one more. No? It's a close. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you all. So I never imagined that I would be a member of Congress. Never imagined it. Some months ago, I was cleaning out my attic and found a bunch of materials that I had from when I was a history and civics teacher. And I found some notes from a conversation that my students had with Patrick Leahy. And they had an email conversation with him, and he had stepped off the floor of the Senate. And he would do this from time to time for classrooms, and they were asking him questions. It was during the lead up to the Gulf War. They had a lot of really good questions. And at the time, I remember thinking, what an extraordinary job he has. It's too bad I missed my moment to run for office. I really felt that way. And I loved teaching, and I am a much better legislator now because I was a teacher for so many reasons. But when I am able to do these town halls, when I'm able to stand at a podium and look out at all of you, and I do feel the weight of the responsibility of representing all of you in Congress and really doing my level best day in and day out, I have to still pinch myself that I am your Congresswoman.
Yes.
I am your Congresswoman. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're so kind. The last thing I want to say is, don't lose hope. I haven't lost hope. We're going to get through this, but we're going to do it together, okay? Every single one of us. This is our country, and we set the agenda. We set the course. We can do this, and we will do this, okay? All right.